A record-breaking heat wave is now spreading into the western part of South Korea, including the capital region. The Greater Seoul area is now under the country's first ever severe heat emergency warning, with temperatures expected to reach 38 degrees Celsius today. President Lee Jae-myung calls for an immediate all-out response to the severe heat wave while presiding over a cabinet meeting this morning. Meanwhile, on the controversial amendment to the Criminal Procedure Act, he signaled that he will not veto a bill that will strip prosecutors of their remaining direct investigative powers. U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran faces its last chance to reach a nuclear deal, saying talks with Tehran are underway. But Iran insists it is not negotiating with Washington. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. As the heat wave continues here in the country, extreme heat has started to reach the western parts of the Korean peninsula. With forecasters warning that extreme heat will persist throughout the week, we connect live to our correspondent Cho Young-eun, who is in the southern city of Daegu. So Young-eun, how hot is it where you are?
Hello, MG. I'm currently standing live in Daegu from the southeast, which is enduring one of the most intense heat waves in decades. I've been standing out here for a few minutes now, and it already feels exhausting. The current temperature here is 34 degrees Celsius, what feels like temperatures even higher combined with high humidity. While Daegu has long been known as one of South Korea's hottest cities, with temperatures reaching 40 degrees on Monday, it is no longer the only region facing extreme summer heat. Scorching temperatures are now affecting much of the country's western regions, prompting the Korea Meteorological Administration to expand its severe heat wave warnings. As of 11 a.m. on Tuesday, severe heat wave warnings have been issued for Seoul, as well as parts of Jeonju in Jeollabuk-do Province and Gwangju and Jeollanam-do Province. While Seoul is forecast to hit 38 degrees Celsius, the highest temperature of the summer so far. Heat wave alerts remain in effect across most of the country. Many people in Daegu say they've never experienced heat like this before. Let's hear what they have to say.
I've always known Daegu to be a really hot city. I'm actually from Daegu myself, so I'm well aware of how intense the heat can get. I'm not exactly sure why, but it's definitely known for being much hotter than most other parts of the country.
I've been there. I've been here a couple of years ago, and the weather was much more comfortable. Now I have to drink a lot and have to stay in cool places like cafe and so on. So it's difficult to walk during the daytime.
Right. So Young-eun, what's driving these extreme temperatures, and what can people expect for the rest of the week?
Right, indeed. The Tibetan High and the North Pacific High remains locked over the Korean peninsula, creating a powerful heat dome that traps hot air and allows temperatures to continue rising. So, on top of that, easterly winds associated with Typhoon Dolphin are descending the western slopes of the country's mountain ranges. This effect is expected to push temperatures even higher, reaching the Seoul metropolitan area and other western regions. With easterly winds expected to proceed throughout the week, forecasters say daytime's high could continue hovering around 40 degrees Celsius in some areas. If the current pattern continues, experts warn that this summer could surpass 2018 as South Korea's hottest summer on record. That's all I have for now, but I'll be back with updates. Back to you, Lindsay.
All right, Young-eun, thank you for that. Do keep us updated. And amid the severe heat wave sweeping South Korea, President Lee Jae-myung, presiding over the cabinet meeting held at the Blue House this morning, called out for an immediate all-out response from across ministries and agencies. President Lee urged the Climate Ministry and others to regard the ongoing extreme heat wave as the equivalent to a national disaster and to mobilize all available resources to keep the public safe. Officials were encouraged to implement safety measures for workers in harsh working conditions, look into financial support for severely affected areas, and secure emergency energy supplies amid rising demand. And President Lee has also signaled that he will not veto the revision to the Criminal Procedure Act, which will strip prosecutors of their direct investigative powers.
이 법률안이 위헌, 집행불능, 국익위배, 행정부 고유관 침해 등 국회 입법권을 부정할 만큼 심각한 상황이라고 보기는 어렵습니다.
President Lee made the remarks at a cabinet meeting this morning where the bill is set to be reviewed. The president argued that prosecutors have long exercised excessive authority from investigations to indictments, allowing them in some cases to cover up wrongdoing or unfairly target individuals. At the same time, he acknowledged growing concerns over concentrating investigative powers in the hands of the police, saying follow-up measures would be needed. If enacted, the amendment would leave prosecutors with the authority to decide whether to file charges based on evidence gathered by police or other investigative agencies. They would only be able to request additional investigations when deemed necessary. So the future role of prosecutors in South Korea is at the center of a growing political and legal debate, as lawmakers at the National Assembly clashed over the prosecutor reform plan. As the landmark reform heads toward final government approval, both supporters and opponents are making their final case. Our correspondent Moon Hee-ryut reports.
Korea's ruling and opposition parties remain sharply divided over a sweeping overhaul of the role of prosecutors in the criminal investigation system, with the cabinet set to take up the bill on Tuesday before it becomes law. The amendment passed by the National Assembly on July 31st strips prosecutors of their power to investigate cases directly or order police to carry out further investigations. In their place, the law enshrines a clear split between investigation and prosecution, while requiring police and prosecutors to cooperate at every stage of a case. The Democratic Party defended the legislation during a public briefing at the National Assembly on Monday, arguing that it strengthens victim protections and clarifies investigative procedures. Acting party chairman Han Bung-do described the bill as the next essential stage of judicial reform.
The revision is not the end of prosecution reform, but the beginning of a criminal justice system centered on the people. It marks a historic institutional change by ending a prosecutor-centered system and separating investigative and prosecutorial powers.
Meanwhile, the main opposition, People Power Party, renewed its call for President Lee Jae-myung to veto the bill ahead of the cabinet meeting, while also preparing a constitutional challenge. Party chairman Chang Dong-hyuk warned the legislation would undermine the country's long-standing judicial framework.
A judicial system maintained for 78 years has been dismantled overnight. Rebuilding it will take enormous time, or it may prove impossible to restore properly.
Meanwhile, National Office of Investigation Commissioner Hong Seok-ki said police would work to improve the completeness of investigations before referring cases to prosecutors, expressing confidence that closer consultation between the two agencies would reduce the need for additional investigations under the revised system. Moon Hee-ryut, Arirang News.
Tensions continue to escalate in the Middle East as U.S. President Donald Trump says Iran faces its last chance to reach a nuclear deal, while Tehran insists it is not negotiating with Washington. Our Kim Bo-kyung reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump says the talks with Iran are underway. Trump, speaking at the Oval Office on Monday, escalated the pressure by saying this was Iran's last chance before decapitation, signaling that the U.S. could still launch the large-scale strikes on Iran. Trump, who recently held off with an order to American forces to carry out strikes at the request of Gulf allies, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, added that he hopes Iran will come to its senses to grab one last chance to strike a deal.
Now, we've already, through lots of large attacks, but they were normal large. Hopefully they'll come to their senses, because what happened cannot have a nuclear weapon, but hopefully they'll come to their senses.
Trump added that the first phase of negotiations will be opening the Strait of Hormuz, which will be followed by addressing U.S. concerns over Iran's nuclear program, which will take a little while. He underlined that Washington will not allow Iran to charge commercial vessels transit fees for passing through the strait.
And no, there's not going to be charging. We're not talking about charging at all. There won't be charging.
This comes after Iran said it was not negotiating with the U.S. and had no plans to do so. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baei said at a briefing Monday local time that Iran and Oman were currently negotiating an agreement on a safe transit route for vessels passing through the Strait of Hormuz. He stressed that the talks are a matter between Iran and Oman, that there is no role for the U.S. to play in the negotiations. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
A former U.S. envoy for North Korean human rights is calling on Washington to reconsider its long-running ban on Americans traveling to North Korea. In an article published by the Korea Economic Institute of America, Robert King, who served as special envoy from 2009 to 2017, said the United States has renewed the travel ban every year without publicly evaluating whether it has achieved its goals. While acknowledging the risks for inexperienced travelers, King argued that the ban has also prevented American humanitarian organizations from delivering aid to North Korea, despite their experience working with North Korean officials. The U.S. imposed a travel ban in 2017 after the death of American college student Otto Warmbier, who died shortly after being released from North Korean detention. Consumer price inflation dropped back into the 2% range last month. This comes as oil price surges cool down, alongside a slowdown in agricultural price increases. Our correspondent Lee Ji-yeon explains more.
Consumer price inflation returned to the 2% range for the first time in 3 months. According to the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Tuesday, consumer price inflation, which has stayed in the 3% range in May and June, slowed in July with just a 2.8% increase compared to the same time the previous year. Petroleum product prices remain well above last year's level, though the rate of gain narrowed last month. Petroleum product prices rose 15.5% in July compared to the previous year, cooling down from a nearly 25% increase in June. Officials attributed the slowing down to falling global oil prices and the extension of the government's price cap.
As for petroleum products, the pace of price increases slowed from the previous month, largely due to a slight decline in global oil prices and the government's market stabilization measures, including its price cap policy.
Slower growth in prices for agricultural, livestock, and fisheries products also contributed to the return to the 2% range. Prices in this sector rose just 0.9% on year last month, narrowing significantly from increases of more than 3% in June. However, for leafy vegetables, recent extreme heat has led to a price surge. Compared to the previous month, lettuce prices rose more than 17% and spinach jumped nearly 43%. The government pledged to closely monitor these trends, as hot weather in July and August usually affects general vegetable prices. With government-backed discount programs continuing into August, officials noted that upcoming price movements are expected to hinge on the impact of these measures. Lee Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea's Taekwondo Promotion Foundation has released a new promotional video highlighting the global value of Taekwondo as part of its ongoing campaign to secure UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage status. The 2.5-minute video showcases how practitioners around the world train and connect with communities. It weaves together Taekwondo's deep philosophy and vibrant community culture with sports tourism and K-culture. Co-produced by the Taekwondo Promotion Foundation and Arirang TV, the project was supported by the Ministry of Culture and the Korea Sports Promotion Foundation. You can watch the video on social media and right here on Arirang TV's various channels. As K-pop takes over the global mainstream in music, fans aren't just listening anymore. They want to sing like their favorite stars, and that passion is now bringing Korean vocal professors to classrooms around the world. Our Kim So-young has a story.
At a women's university in Kyoto, Japan, students packed into what might be their most anticipated class of the semester. Their instructor today is a Korean vocal professor who has trained some of K-pop's biggest names.
You keep the flow, but you add emphasis in the right moment. That's what makes a song memorable. K-pop singers perform while dancing, and that's what makes K-pop what it is.
He walks students through specialized breathing techniques and how to channel emotion through their voice.
How was it? Can you feel the difference? I think you can. I'm already seeing thumbs up.
The demand for this kind of training has grown so much that the university flew the professor in, covering all expenses to give students direct access to professional K-pop vocal coaching. And the students are thrilled.
After the lesson, I could really feel the difference in how I use my voice and express emotion.
Even Japanese faculty, some hearing K-pop for the first time, were won over. Bringing in overseas experts has quietly become a tradition here. The day wrapped up with a live K-pop performance, open not just for students, but to the local community. The seats filled fast.
We are committed to supporting the global expansion of K-culture as an academic institution.
Donga Institute of Media and Arts plans to broaden that mission, expanding academic exchanges beyond Japan to countries including the United States. Kim Seo-young, Arirang News.
This is the world now. Russian officials say a Ukrainian drone came down on a crowded beach on the Black Sea coast, killing 7 people. 3 of them were children. The drone hit near the village of Archipo-Osipovka on Sunday at the height of the holiday season. It dropped toward the shoreline before erupting into a fireball. As well as the 7 deaths, 40 people were hurt, and 17 of those were hospitalized. Krasnodar's governor called it, quote, a deliberate strike on civilians. Ukraine has not responded. Both sides deny they target civilians, and it is not yet clear what the drone was aiming at. Romania has blown up a rocky outcrop on the Danube River to steer more water towards its only working nuclear reactor. This comes as the drought in Eastern Europe has left river water levels too low to cool the nuclear plant. The controlled blast on Monday threw up a tower of water and rubble, clearing ground for a temporary dam to redirect water to the reactor. Romania had already shut one of its 2 nuclear plants last week. Upstream in Hungary, the Pax nuclear plant is down to just over 10% of capacity after the Danube hit a record low water level. Eastern European countries are looking to conserve energy, and 2 car makers have paused their Romanian car plants until August 19th. In the United States, 2 people in Michigan have died from an intestinal illness traced back to iceberg lettuce. Both had serious underlying conditions that the illness and dehydration may have worsened. Michigan has now logged more than 11,000 cases and 193 hospitalizations. The Food and Drug Administration has tied the outbreak to a Taylor Farms operation in central Mexico, but authorities are still hunting for other potential sources. U.S. pop star Ariana Grande will step out of public life once her tour wraps next month. A representative for the pop star told People magazine that her public-facing work has brought her, quote, endless ongoing public scrutiny. She has also pulled out of a Stephen Sondheim revival due to open at London's Barbican Centre in 2027. Grande has 3 dates left in Chicago before a 10-night run at London's O2 Arena, where her tour ends on September 1st. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
It's an absolute scorcher out there. At 11 a.m. today, the first heat wave emergency warning of the year officially came into effect for the capital area, along with Gwangju and Jeollanam-do province. A hot, dry easterly wind will bake the western parts of Korea, and temperatures will go even higher than yesterday in Seoul. Meanwhile, there could be sudden showers in some of the western parts of Korea. The heat will stay, but it will raise the humidity, so please keep an umbrella handy. And this afternoon, Seoul and Gwangju will be getting up to sizzling 38 degrees Celsius, but eastern regions will notice cooler highs at 36 degrees in Daegu and 34 degrees over in Busan. This extreme heat and those uncomfortable tropical nights will stick around all week long. Even the healthiest people can be at risk of heat-related illnesses, so please stay indoors during the hottest hours and drink plenty of water.
Now that's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.